You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, this is Jeff Belanger, author, researcher for Ghost Adventures, host of New England Legends, and of course, beer drinker. And you're listening to PSH Radio with Sam and Carl on the Parasearch Network. They're broadcasting to you from Old England. You can tell by the accents.
Good evening, guys. We are back. And obviously, we have another interesting guest on for you this evening. We are obviously going down the Paranormal Convention / conference trail again, because obviously we do a lot of them on Parasearch and PSH Radio. And this week I am obviously joined by my co-host Carl. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Sam. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. A little bit tired, a long day at work, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
And obviously, it's good to have you on, because obviously you've had a bit of a break, haven't you? So
yeah, I've had a couple of busy weeks at work, so getting home at silly times, and then having to rush, and then obviously, yeah, I just couldn't do the last couple of shows because of that. But I'm back, so.
Great stuff. So obviously we may as well. I'm just gonna obviously first, may as well now, guys, get straight into it. Good evening, Danielle.
Oh, hi, Sam. Hi, Carl.
Hello.
This is my husband. My husband is with me, Frank Sheahan.
Hello, Sam. Hello, Carl. Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you both.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
So how are you both anyway?
Well, yes, we're very, very well, thank you. We live in a very unusual property. It's a real lighthouse in Newport, and my husband has been painting it all day, trying to paint the whole of it.
Yeah, so 2 days, and I've actually finished. I finished about an hour ago, so I'm still covered in a bit of paint, white paint and blue paint for the windows. But it's painted now. I have to do it every 3 years. It's very exposed.
You have to have
hoping it's not like the Forth Bridge. Once you've finished it, you got to start again.
It's a little bit like that, Carl. Yeah, he's pretty much like that. Yeah.
So is it an actual lighthouse on a cliff? And
No, it's a decommissioned lighthouse. It was decommissioned in 1921. It's almost like a squat, almost like a Martello Tower.
Okay.
It's similar to that. But no, we're actually on the banks of the River Usk and the Severn Estuary.
Lovely.
The water's only about 30 feet away.
Oh, very nice.
Which is very nice. And it's a round building, so we've had a number of meetings here, and we've had mediums and psychics, and it's almost like the power of the circle at the lighthouse. It's quite, and it's on crossing ley lines as well, which is cool.
That's gonna boost the energy up.
Yeah, and it was built by the Freemasons.
Okay.
So there's some interesting angles here.
So there must be a lot of history to the place then.
There's quite a lot of history. Quite a lot of history.
Being on ley lines, close to water, having the connection to the Masons, Freemasons. That must kick up some interesting activity in the place.
We've had some paranormal groups come around with their equipment and things, and they've had some interesting results. Physical phenomena, which has been quite interesting. The front doorbell ringing, and it's not our front door sound; it's a different tuned bell. You had a choice of two, and it's playing the one that we didn't choose. And you go to the front door, and there's no one there. And that's happened a couple of times. So we've had some fun. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll talk about more of that in a little while, because that sounds really interesting. So, Sam, how do you want to go with this? Do you want to just kick straight off into it?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, you guys are holding two of my passions, UFOs and paranormal, convention, in Newport on the 9th of June between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of it, so I'll let you pronounce the name of the location, because I'll probably murder the disc. The way you say it.
Yeah. We don't know what it stands for, but it's the Lysats Institute.
Okay.
And it's a Grade 2 listed building. It's a beautiful building.
Cool.
And it was held by lottery funding as well. So it was derelict at one point, but it's now become a real nice venue.
Okay, brilliant. So just to clarify, just obviously for our listeners, and do you want to give us a quick overview of both yourselves and what your interests are and what your experiences are? Sort of like give us a quick glossary of your resume of what you do.
In the sense of the business we run, or the paranormal business?
Both is fine. Yeah.
The paranormal business, we run the Lighthouse as a bed and breakfast, but it's a very unusual building. So we do have, and we are New Age people. So we believe in a higher consciousness, and we believe in therapies, and we believe in crystals. So we've had several meetings here with groups of people where we talk and chat. We have mediums here. We have, as Frank said, investigations. Because we do have one room that used to be a little bit haunted, wasn't it?
The family room.
The family room used to be a bit haunted, but we've had a lot of people come around here, and they've asked the whoever was there to move on to the light. So I think whoever was there has moved on now, and the lighthouse is clear. I don't think we have any ghosts as such, really. But I'm a hypnotherapist and a healer. But my friend Gareth Mates, Sufon in West Wales, they're very interested in UFOs, and he's been here before doing his paranormal research. And Gareth said, Emlyn, we arranged it last year, but he had to pull out because of family issues. So Gareth helped me to organize it. And first of all, it was just going to be UFOs, completely UFOs, but Gareth is interested in the paranormal, and so he's added the paranormal bit. So in the morning, we're going to have UFOs, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have mediumship and psychic, demonstration.
Yeah, because you often find, particularly with people into the paranormal side of it, they also have the same sort of interest in the UFO side of it. Because I know I do, and I know my co-host on a Friday night on the Dark Mirror show that we do is also into the UFOs. And obviously,
yeah, it is interesting because I was talking to one of my friends today, and she's become quite psychic. She said it happened to her about 7 years ago. She went to a psychic workshop, and I think she opened up. And later on that evening, she saw some UFOs, above her, and they started to talk to her. It's amazing. All of a sudden, I've never heard her say that, but that's what has happened to her. And all of a sudden, she's opened up and she's writing poems. She's writing a book. She's, talking to them all the time, but they're aliens.
Well, I describe, obviously, mediumship. I think everybody has the ability. It's a bit like drawing. It's just how well you can draw. Everybody can draw, but it's just how well you can draw. And you can then progress, and you can learn more, and you can get to draw better and better and better. And I think that's when it comes to mediumship work as well, is once you start going down that path of progression and improving yourself, you become more and more in tune. And it's a bit like, I've got a couple of friends who say once you start doing it more and more, the mediumship side of it, you become like a beacon. So you become more aware of different things happening in the world and in the environment around yourselves.
Yeah, you become more sensitive. We keep meeting people who are mediums, and but Frank and I, we're not. But I suppose we are.
We're interested.
We're interested, but we're not we haven't become sensitive yet. So
I think the lighthouse does actually have a bit of history of UFOs, although I've never personally seen one. The previous owner here, a guy called Tony Edwards, passed away now, but he did tell me a story that was quite interesting. He was fishing with his friend about 2:00 in the morning just by the lighthouse. They did have a couple of beers, but anyway, along the coastline, they saw 4 metallic discs come flying in line with the coastline. They flew right above them, and then they followed the power cables, which are about 1.5 miles away. And they both sort of looked at each other and said, "Crikey, did you see what I just saw?" And they both confirmed it. They saw the same thing. Then about 20 minutes later, it repeated itself. Again, 4 metallic discs in formation, flying right over the lighthouse and the power cables. And then another time, I was chatting to the farmer, who are very practical, logical people, and we got onto the subject of UFOs, and he told me a story that he experienced in his farm, at the farmyard. At about 4:00 in the morning, he was woken up by a humming sound, a very sort of typical UFO sort of humming sound, frequency sound. And he looked up, obviously got up, he looked up in the above the yard there, and there was a triangular shaped craft, which he saw. This is a farmer, and then it shot off. And then another time, Tony Edwards, the previous owner, was out fishing in a boat this time with a couple of friends, or certainly one friend, and they thought a little meteorite was going to hit the side of the boat. And just as they thought it was going to hit the water, it shot off horizontally. So it couldn't have been a meteorite. So there has been a little bit of history of UFOs here.
Well, one of the things that I know about UFO sightings, etc., is, and you mentioned it when you were talking about the lighthouse, is obviously the lighthouse sits on ley lines.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
And obviously you get a lot of activity where they follow the ley lines. It's kind of, there is a belief that it's kind of like a GPS for UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting to understand the lights that the parts owners saw, particularly, and they were running down the cables, whether that was following the ley lines.
That's possible. It is possible, yeah.
Well, linked to the ley line is linked to Stonehenge, and then somebody said up to Tumbalum, and to, is it Northern Ireland?
Oh, no, possibly Northern Ireland.
A special place in Ireland. So
we've interviewed somebody on the show in the past who he was talking, and he's well into his ley lines, and he was saying it's amazing that how ley lines intercept with other famous areas such as like Stonehenge and the other stone circles around the country. And I honestly do believe that it is a kind of roadmap for if you want to say UFOs and stuff like that. So that's really interesting.
Sorry, Carl. Yeah, you tend to find also the lighthouse is actually on crossing ley lines, but you do tend to find that you do get more communication, if you like, from the spirit world or the etheric world, whatever you want to call it, on properties that are actually on crossing leys. There seems to be more phenomena because of that energy system, I guess. So the lighthouse, we actually, years ago, we had a friend of ours who's very much into dowsing, had a course here. There was about 13 of them. Some of them were novices, and they walked around the lighthouse, 13 in a row, 13 of them, and you couldn't have faked it. You saw the dowsing rods all crossing, all at the same time, each time they hit the ley line. It was very impressive. So the energy lines are definitely there. And we had confirmation again another times, So we live in a round building on crossing leys, and it's also, the lighthouse is also on a granite base. So I think I think with the weight of the lighthouse on granite, that stresses the granite, which can maybe add to a little bit of the phenomena. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got granite in the lantern room as well, which is very unusual. So I'm looking into it now because I've got the book, the Orion Mystery. So I'm going to look into it, the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Because our producer, our station owner, Kerry, you can actually hear us at the moment. Kerry's obviously into the crystals and she works with crystals and everything like that.
Yeah.
So just to bring Kerry in quickly, sorry to do this to you, Kerry.
No, sure. Okay. No.
Are you there?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking off the top of my head because obviously
I was muted.
No, obviously, what's your because obviously we've just been talking about ley lines and obviously crossing ley lines around buildings built on granite. I'm not that au fait with the ins and outs of the crystal elements and how they work. Do you think that what they're describing would have some sort of impact on the activity and UFO activity around the area?
Difficult question.
It's a multi-layered question. That's the problem because you do get a lot more or you do seem to get a lot more activity in regards to ley lines, but you also do seem to get more ufology cases and sightings around ley lines too, particularly the ancient sites that tend to be the crossing points of the ley lines. So it kind of seems to be intertwined, but you also get. And this is something that's tracks that I'm actually following at the moment. A lot of poltergeist cases, you tend to get a lot of ufology cases in the same area at the same time as well. So I definitely think there's a link between paranormal phenomena and ufology as well. I do think that there is that link. I'm coming more and more around to that kind of way of thinking. I also think that the earth energy lines, the ley lines themselves, are incredibly important in that too. How that all ties together, we don't know. I can imagine that is probably a huge research project. But yeah, it is fascinating when you start really delving into it, the links that there are between them. Even Enfield, Guy Leon Playfair states in his book, at the time there was cases of ufology, like UFO sightings at the time. He only references it. He doesn't delve into it or give you any details on that, but he does mention it. So even he was having those kind of thoughts, I suppose. And even in the Mothman prophecies, John Keel states that people were experiencing poltergeist activity in the same time as UFOs were being seen. Is there a link, or is it just coincidence? Who knows? But it's definitely something more research people than myself are picking up on. So it's definitely something that maybe should be considered.
Yeah. I think with with physical mediumship, specifically the Skoll experiment, you had trance mediums there, and they also set up a video loop system. And lo and behold, when they played the video back, there was an image of an alien, which was very impressive. They named him Blue. So it wasn't a grey, it was blue. But you do tend to find sometimes also in trance mediumship that they can have an entity come through, an intelligence come through that has never actually had a life on the earth plane. So it's interesting that they're paranormal and communication between the dimensions. You can pick up possibly an alien, plus you can pick up someone who's had a life here. So there is this strong link.
So for my conference, I've got Guy Needler. He's going to be one of the speakers, and he had a meeting with a UFO craft when he was on a retreat, and they were hovering above him. And after that meeting with them, he became quite a psychic. He was a civil engineer before, with a straight thinking, and all of a sudden he's into healing and communicating with God. But what he can do also is get people to go into different dimensions. Through his workshops, you can go to different dimensions. So these aliens they must be from a different dimension, or they could be from a planet. We don't know. It could be from one of the planets, the Orion triangle. Is it where they think the pyramids are linked to? So we don't know, do we? We don't know what's happening up there in the sky. But where we are at the lighthouse, sometimes when we look out of our windows, we can see lights, and then all of a sudden they'll just disappear. So, and my husband also has seen very strange lights when we are out walking at night, isn't it?
It's a rare thing, but I think I've seen it twice. Yeah. Yes. So there was the case of the police helicopter allegedly chasing a UFO in the estuary just by us here. That did hit local media, didn't it, in the papers and things. But I think it was more. It was here and also Cardiff. Yeah. But one of our friends did actually meet the pilot of the.
Oh yes.
Of the police helicopter. Yeah. And it was pretty impressive, his story, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and also we had a fin whale beached near us in 2004, which is a very, very strange thing. So we don't know what happened to it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful creature.
Yeah, I know.
It was 40 ton.
A few yards from us.
It was 40 ton and it was 61 feet in length. And we were the first ones down there. Yeah, it was a beautiful creature. It didn't survive, unfortunately, no.
Well, they believe that obviously how these whales and mammals and stuff like that, like travel, they have they're built in. They have their own built-in sort of rate. And sometimes the reason they come in is it gets scrambled by modern day
submarine or UFOs.
So there's ties in all the time with different things, like different activity. So you've got Guy obviously talking. Who else have you got on the obviously?
I've got a lady talking about Atlantis.
Okay.
So a lot of researchers have tried to do work on Atlantis, and obviously we know it's a continent that somehow got sunk by maybe I don't know, some higher consciousness. But she's channeling the information. Whether that's enough evidence, I don't know. But she'll be talking about Atlantis, and also she'll be talking about ascension beings. So could they be, aliens? We don't know. So that'd be interesting. And we've got John Blackburn. He's coming to talk about physical mediumship, but also his research on Rendlesham.
Yeah.
So linking it, like we've been saying, linking it to, the paranormal.
Yeah, because I've met John a few times, and I know.
All right.
I know the work he does, and I know obviously the research he's sort of done into the UFO, and obviously he's obviously a physical medium as well, and all that sort of stuff. He's very, very interesting too. I've been to a couple of his talks, so he's a very, very good, and obviously very much into the paranormal as well. So.
Yeah, amazing, really. So we've got a circle here, and my husband is. They're trying to do physical mediumship as well. They've had a lot of orbs. They've recorded a lot of orbs, and then a figure appeared, which they've recorded. So they're trying to do physical mediumship as well. So we and Emlyn is going to talk about UFOs in South Wales and cases that we've never heard of.
Yeah, Sufon, isn't it?
Sufon, yeah, Sufon. So he's going to
get Sufon all over the world, don't you? We a couple of about 2 or 3 weeks ago on the Dark Mirror show, we were talking about Sufon and reports that they'd seen and all this sort of stuff, and cases about what they've seen, and because obviously they research it and they look at all the various different angles, whether there was any aircraft in the area.
Yeah.
like that. So it's quite an in-depth when they look at a case. It's a very much quite an in-depth look at. They try to look at all the different aspects, whether it was a physical man-made.
Yes.
They check what was flying, this sort of stuff. So that's very interesting, because we were just talking about a couple of weeks ago whether there was how many SUFON organisations are in the UK for the various for the different areas. So that's really good.
Yeah, and we've got friends who've been abducted as well. So by aliens. So I can't see why people would lie. There's no reason. And I know especially one of our friends. He kept quiet for many, many years. He didn't want to tell anyone. And we've met people as well who've seen UFOs and so on, but they don't want to discuss it, because they're scared or, and my brother's seen one, he doesn't want to talk about it ever. And Frank's brother's seen one as well.
Yeah, I think when it comes to UFOs, it's similar to when it comes to the paranormal side of it. Paranormal has sort of the paranormal side of it, so the ghost research, the investigation, the equipment, because you have the TV programs, it's sort of become more mainstream. I can remember when I first got into it about 20 years ago, you didn't really tell people, oh, you're interested in the paranormal when you go out and investigate. But it's become more mainstream now. And I think UFO research is slowly getting to that point as well. The momentum is coming, that it is becoming into mainstream. Because I know people that I've spoken to, and they're a non-believer in the paranormal, but they've got a ghost story.
I know.
And they want to tell you the story. And it's also similar to people that I've met talking about UFOs. They don't believe in UFOs, but they kind of have a UFO story.
Yeah, that's right. I met this woman. She's quite straight-laced, and she's a financial advisor, like mortgage broker. And when you look at her, you think, well, no way. So I was telling her about my conference, and she said, oh yes, my house is haunted. I live with it. I live with the ghosts. Just like, as if it was just normal.
Yeah, I think
my house is haunted.
Yeah. I think that is the biggest key, because there's so many people now that are basically happy to tell you the stories about their alleged haunted locations that they live in, visited, and they want to tell you about their experiences. Which I think is very, very fascinating. When you think, even 10 years ago, people were a little bit wary about it, because they could be made out to be crackpots, crazy people. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the same with the UFOs as well, particularly when it comes to the cases of the alien abduction, because people don't want to talk about it, because they don't want to be judged, and they don't want to be made out to be crackpots or whatever. I don't think they are. I think there's a lot of basis behind most abduction stories, whether it is little green men picking them up in their spaceships, or whether it's something else that's happening, whether they're going into a psychosis, etc., and what they're actually physically seeing is a psychosis, and their mind is back. And
that's right. They don't want to be ridiculed, do they? They don't.
Yeah. The problem with that hypothesis, though, is that sometimes there's 2 or 3 people have been abducted at the same time.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't account for a psychosis.
No, because our friend, the whole family.
The whole family. Yeah.
Yeah, and they still see them. They come into their bedroom, and they wherever they go, they would see a UFO. They take lots of pictures of.
And they have
UFOs.
these markings.
And
on
there's
the body,
another friend who has markings. When they come to take them up somewhere, so it's fascinating, really.
Yeah.
And
I quite agree with your husband there about when he mentioned about, obviously, when there's more than one person involved.
Yeah.
And they tell the same story. Like the famous case that we've discussed on the radio in the past. I think it's the Fire in the Sky in America, where they were in the woods and they're like lumberjacks.
Oh yeah.
And they, to this day, every single one of them has stayed true to their story.
Right. Yeah.
They've had lie detectors and done everything like that. And so something obviously has happened to them.
Yeah.
It's just your logical, you've just got to look at it and in your logical way of thinking, right, okay, so something has happened to them. Is it aliens, or is it, as we've discussed it on shows before, is it the government, or is it this, or is it whatever? So there's very different lines you can go down.
Well, there's certainly been a huge amount of, historically, RAF pilots spotting UFOs, and some of these UFOs appear on radar as well, and they've been chased by
NASA's
the RAF
got lots of films about UFOs
and quite often it could be a policeman who's observed a UFO, the early hours of the morning. Yeah, and normally they go around in twos as well, so it'll be two policemen seeing something extraordinary. And these are, reliable witnesses. So there's something going on. Whether it's extraterrestrial or terrestrial, it's probably a mixture of both, probably. But people do say, that they want to communicate, but they don't know who to communicate to, because the military and certain governments are not necessarily got humanity's interest at heart. And I think hopefully there'll be a breakthrough at some stage, and we'll all be enlightened by it, and it will move humanity forward, hopefully. But obviously, you talk about, some people say, well, there's so many different kinds. I mean, there could be 20, 30 different species of aliens visiting the planet at any one time. Some benign, some friendly, some maybe not so friendly. But there's certainly something. There's something going on. Obviously, I think we're being kept in the dark deliberately, because the military governments don't have control of our airspace. Yeah. And I don't want to panic people.
But if we were to know that there are aliens, I mean, think about the fear that would create. People would be so fearful they wouldn't go out of their houses, because
I'm more scared of the taxman than an alien, to be honest.
Well, you don't know, because they've got powers that we don't have. Suppose they come knocking on your door,
Well, they have the technology. I mean, obviously they've been around for a very long time. If they wanted to destroy us or exploit us, I think that would have happened already.
They would have done it, yes. So I think they're just watching. They're the watchers, aren't they?
There's probably an agenda, but we just don't know what the agenda is.
Yeah. We've discussed obviously the reasons behind certain governments keeping the information away from the general public. And one of them is obviously mass hysteria. If you find out there's aliens been visiting us for donkey's years, or there's, on the other case of it is keeping the population into a certain mindset.
That's more like it,
which is another reason why they do. Because we've discussed obviously with phenomena, we've discussed obviously the Men in Black, and we've discussed alien abduction, and we've discussed all these. And I think last week's show we were discussing phenomena like you see, like in pictures where you see from the Mars rover and things like that. We've discussed. So there is various different elements to the whole. That whole aspect of this area, and I completely agree with you. I think we're not being told the complete truth. I think we just get dripped a little bit of information.
And
then the other time, it's as I describe it. It's smokes and mirrors. Watch this hand wave at you while the other one picks your pocket, because you're getting told something when something else is going on. And I think, particularly when it comes to things like Area 51. Everybody, up until recent times, the US government did declare that they wouldn't acknowledge the place. They do. And to be truthfully honest, I personally think that, yes, it was a test base for all these different craft that the US government and US Air Force came up with over the years. Whether it's been back-ended from alien technology. That's another discussion. But I don't think it's the hub of where they keep aliens in. I think there's somewhere, if it does exist, I think it's somewhere else that nobody talks about.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yes, yeah,
more than
I would
likely.
think so as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, if there was proper communication, I mean, there could be a tremendous help for humanity with their technology. I mean, free energy, for one.
But it is possible.
Well, that's right. I mean, but their technology would obviously be more advanced than ours. So there could be, and we have so many problems with humanity at the moment that someone like
we could learn a bit more about their planet or their culture, so I mean, it would add to our knowledge anyway.
It goes back to one thing. If you're talking about free energy and technology, there's too many people in the world at the moment, and the human race, that
want to control that. Yeah, they want to hang on to it.
From that. So if you take off energy and we use alien technology for the energy, there's a lot of people going to be out of pocket. So I think they want to control what.
Well, that's what happened with poor old Tesla, wasn't it? Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. So I think there's so many different people that hide behind certain things, and I think some of it is scaremongering as well.
Yeah.
Just to keep the population in check.
Yeah, if you put fear into people, you can control them more easily. So that's for sure. Yeah. You put fear into people, you can control them.
Yeah, I'm sure, because they've got so many cameras everywhere. They must catch a lot of UFOs, a lot of UFO activity. Do you think?
Well,
many cameras,
about UFOs.
they've got satellites.
You go on YouTube and you can see the amount of camera footage of security camera footage of paranormal events, which are very interesting. There's loads of them on at the moment on YouTube, so these cameras are everywhere. But then you can't trust
YouTube though, can you?
Well,
because
some
it's
of them are pretty
photoshopped and
that is a problem. But some of them, you think, well, okay, so even if 10% of them are genuine, 10% are genuine.
Well, that's the same as the paranormal, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're talking about,
what you want is one white crow. no one says it exists, but we find one, then we.
Yeah, I mean, Google is everywhere. I mean, I'm sure they must have captured, images of crafts and.
More than likely.
Yeah.
I think there is. But I think you also mentioned that you've got the stuff that's out there that is photoshopped, that is misidentification. Because I think a lot of the particular UFO case, and when it comes to the paranormal as well, is misidentification, i.e., like aircraft. Things in the sky or whatever, and people then jump to the conclusion. Same with the paranormal. When you look at things, light refraction, when you look on a photo where the camera works and the lens works and the flash works and the video camera, that you will get these distortions and people then jump to that conclusion. But I think you're right. There's got to be a percentage of this stuff that's out there, whether it's UFOs, whether it's ghosts, whether it's anything that is actual footage. Yeah. But you've just got to trawl through a lot of other bits and bobs before you get to
there's trickery and fakery and delusion out there, but there's fool's gold, but there's also real gold. It's just finding that real gold, isn't it?
Yeah. So just quickly going back to the convention, and we've also got who else have we got on there for you? You've got Sinead Friend, who's a psychic medium ghost hunter.
Oh yes,
I haven't met her, but I've seen her work. And then you've got Frank, who's also a paranormal investigator.
Yeah, Frank is my husband here.
Good point. I've just realised that one. I've just seen the surname. And you're going to be doing by the looks of it, going to be doing the skull experiment.
I'll be talking about the skull experiment, the implications of it, and the fact that it was done under scientific conditions, and they even brought in a member of the Magic Circle to see if he could find any trickery or fakery, which he couldn't. And at one time, they even brought in NASA. But And I'll give them an update of the people behind it, Robin and Sandra Foy, who have now moved to Spain. And Robin and Sandra are going to be opening up a paranormal centre next year. And they're going to try and resurrect the skull experiment again, which would be fantastic.
Just for some of our listeners who, because we have listeners that come in that are new to the paranormal.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Do you want to quickly just give a quick rundown? I know it's a very in-depth subject, the skull experiment.
Sure.
But do you want to just give a quick rundown of the history?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Where it took place.
Sure. It was in the 90s. And it was set up by Robin and Sandra Foy. They're based or living in an old farm, used to be an old farmhouse, in a place called Scole, Scole, up north. And they were paranormal investigators and spiritualists. And two trance mediums, Diana and Alan Bennett. They sat for about 5 years. But after about a year, maybe a little bit longer, they were achieving physical phenomena and reports, etc. It became more prolific, and they invited the SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, to come along and observe and form their own opinions. And three members of the SPR, Montague Keen, Arthur Edison, and Professor David Fontana, sat on and off for about 2 years and witnessed the phenomena. They had basically most of it was physical phenomena. So you had full materializations, materialization of hands. You had dematerialization of objects. You had an analog film that, when it was developed, had a device on it, a germanium receptor, which the spirit team asked them to make. Actually, Arthur Edison was an electrical engineer. He made this germanium receptor, which was then linked up to an audio tape. And they had electronic voice film, EVP, for about 20-odd minutes. The germanium receptor that was on this analog film, there was actually a little signature on it, which later on it was confirmed to be Thomas Edison's signature. They sent the signature off to the museum in America, and they confirmed the signature. And Thomas Edison, as some of your readers may know, was working on a device before he passed away for transdimensional communication. So that was quite impressive. Scole was probably the most prolific paranormal circle for the last 100 years. It's that impressive. So it's important that the spirit team get together with Robin and Sandra again, and they're going to try and produce some of the phenomena in natural light. One of the criticisms, unfortunately, of other members of the SPR was a lot of this phenomena was done in the dark. The spirit team said we could produce it in light, but it takes a lot longer. So hopefully they resurrect it in Spain. It's one to watch. And I know that there's going to be a feature film based on the skull experiment, because Robin Foy has been telling us that. And that's going to open up a lot of interest, I think, the general public. And I think the general public, eventually there's going to be some sort of merger between spirituality and science. There'll be a breakthrough. There'll be a paradigm shift. And I think the general public will be a little bit upset with mainstream science, because there's been a tremendous amount of evidence for survival of the human personality, and there's so many case studies at the SPR. But really and truly, mainstream science should have acknowledged the fact that we survive physical death. I mean, that's everybody. I mean, that's the rapist, the murderer, and the saint. We all survive, So the skull experiment is incredibly important. I'm looking forward to watching the feature film, and Daniel and I, we're going to go over to Spain and meet Robin and Sandra, and certainly when they get their centre, we're helping with some of the donations for the centre, and we've done raising some money, etc. But once it's opened, and it should be scheduled for, I think, June or July next year, we're going to go over there, and it will be open to the general public. and it will be a really impressive centre because they've got some big plans and the spirit teams behind it. So it's all good news.
Yeah, I think the good thing about it is that you're keeping a very, very important case study alive in people's memories now.
Yeah,
because obviously, as most things happens in the paranormal industry, people sometimes forget what came before us. When you're talking about obviously EVPs, and then you're talking about the skull experiment and all these sort of, and people often gloss over that and forget about that information. It's all about the TV shows, and it's all about what's happening and this sort of stuff. I think we need to be able. I think this is what the SPR is doing very, very well. It's keeping it out there. It's keeping people talking about it. And the more people talk about it, the more people are going to get interested and look into it more, and then bring that element into their own way they investigate.
Yeah. With the SPR, there's you have there's two camps, to be honest. There's the survivalists, and then you have the materialists, and they're always arguing. The SPR is never going to come out of the closet and say, yes, we accept. The personality of the demise of the brain survives physical death. It's always going to be a society that will debate it, and you would have to form your own opinions. It's a shame, really, but that's the case. I think they should really get off the fence and say, we accept it now, because it's a bundle of sticks principle, really. You have so many facts, and when you start adding these together as sticks, you get a bundle of sticks, and you should accept the phenomena as being genuine, and these communicators that come from the other side, well, let's start listening to what they have to tell us, because it's important what they're telling us, and they're telling us some pretty interesting stuff about life after death. What happens when we die? What can we expect? I mean, the late Professor David Fontana wrote a lovely book, Life After Death. What can we expect? I mean, everybody should be reading that.
I completely agree.
Sorry to interrupt a minute, guys. We've had a comment in the chat room off the lovely Gemma from earlier saying, begs the question, are we as a race projecting the activity?
Ooh, say that again.
Sorry. Gemma says, begs the question, are we as a race projecting the activity?
No, I don't think we are. I mean, telekinetic or super psi is another expression for it. It have to be some incredible form of energy to have psi produce a full materialization or physical movements or reports. I mean, sometimes with poltergeist activity, you could argue it's normally a young girl who's going through puberty, and maybe their family's having problems or whatever, and there seems to be a build-up of that kind of psychic telekinetic energy, which can, in theory, move objects around the room. But super psi or telekinetic phenomena wouldn't explain Skull. We're not projecting it, no. The phenomena at Skull was genuine, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, and it was done under scientific conditions.
Yeah, I think
of course, yeah.
I think that's one of the key things. Sorry.
The thing is with the Skull experiment, they sat for a hell of a long time before they got any phenomena.
They did, yeah, very patient, yeah.
And it was a set of 4 people, wasn't it? Two couples.
It started off with more. There's about 8, but the core got down to 4. Yes, Robin Foy, Sandra Foy, and the Bennetts. Yeah.
So I don't think you can underestimate the link of working that intensely, that closely, with that intention. I don't think that should be underestimated either.
No, I mean, if you're sitting and you're focused on why you're sitting, and you also invite people in to see the phenomena, well, that's got to be good. I mean, they invited the SPR in because they didn't think if they just reported themselves, this is what we had, they will say, well, did anybody else witness it? So, of course, they contacted the SPR, which is a prestigious organisation. You have some very clever people there, very clever academics and scientists who were invited along by Robin Foy, by the group there, to witness the phenomena. And they searched the premises before and afterwards. The controls were perfectly strong and adequate. They even brought in a member of the Magic Circle to see if he could see any trickery or fakery, which was never found. And the member of the Magic Circle was incredibly impressed.
I'm not suggesting that they faked it. What I'm suggesting is the energy and the link that those people created between themselves created the energy and the intention to bring forth the manifestation of activity that they witnessed. And that was witnessed by other people too. But that's what I'm saying. So it's actually created by the people, not
I don't think,
creating a link between spirit and the people.
They
it's
actually
just
had
a theory.
No, they had direct voice, and they had communication. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that it was a group of 4 people sitting together who basically had enough energy to create the phenomena, is what you're basically saying. So the communication between the alleged spirit world was non-existent. It was just something they're manifesting themselves. But I don't think it stands up because the SPR, those investigators, have had over 40 years' experience between each one of them. So that's over 120 years of experience. And also what happens quite often is you have these drop-ins where will come with a message, and there's no one in that room that knows who that person is. You have to leave that room and later on find out if that person ever existed or there's a message for someone else. So that's not telepathy. Some people might argue that it could be tapping into the collective unconscious or the Akashic records, but they even had physical manifestation where Robin Foy's mother appeared as a full materialization, and he hugged her and spoke to her, and she walked around the room. Now, I don't think
witnesses
that...
then?
Yes, yeah,
there were witnesses.
Yeah. They had a tremendous amount of physical phenomena there. Incredibly impressive. I don't think you could say that it was the 4 people's minds that manifested that kind of phenomena. The people they communicated to spoke in the voices that they had when they were alive. They talked about the afterlife. And I think that we should really accept the fact that they were who they said they were.
Please don't think I'm discounting
the
amazing work that they did under those circumstances.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
I just think that there are a lot of things we don't know about the human capabilities, and when you've got people working together that closely energetically, and your intention is actually creating a link with, and I'm going to use air quotes, the spirit dimension. You don't know where you're getting that information from. We assume it's a spiritual dimension with spirits that are coming through, like Edison and things like that. But who knows where that information is actually coming from? And the energy that those 4 people created, they were a very close, unit, and it was built up over a long, long time before they got any activity happening. And yes, it was looked at by some very high-ranking people from the SPR and other organisations, but they still didn't explain exactly what was happening. It showed something happened. It doesn't explain what exactly was happening. It just shows it's a cause and effect. You saw the effect, but not what caused it.
I would disagree. I don't think the human mind is powerful enough to have created what happened at Skull. I really don't. The quality of the investigators, and they've... are you basically saying that all paranormal phenomena is just created by the human psyche, the brain?
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah. It's an opinion. Personally, I wouldn't agree. I do agree that the human mind, we probably do only use 10% of it, and that if we could tap into the rest of it, would be pretty amazing. And I think telekinetic powers, they do exist. But I think what happened at Skull, I think we generally have to accept the fact that I personally accept that it was genuine. And I do know that the people experienced who sat there, and then they did invite in more than just the SPR, but they invited in guests coming and going, But these 3 investigators were top investigators. They had a huge amount of experience. And I know that Montague Keane, who had to write the report to the SPR, he nearly had a nervous breakdown because he's got to put forward what he experienced there, and he knew that there'll be some skeptics. That the reductionists were going to not accept the findings. The phenomena was genuine. Now, what we make of it as individuals is up to us as an individual. So, some people out there will probably think it was all done by the human mind. We're tricking ourselves energetically. But personally, my mind, I'm quite satisfied that it was genuine communication, and I respect the intelligence of those investigators and the honesty of the people sitting. Yeah, no, I'm satisfied. I think we should accept it as being genuine phenomena.
Well, what I'd love to do is get you both back on again, and we can do a complete show on what we just been talking about, because I think it's a very, very interesting show, and I can also bring up a lot of ideas. Obviously, because Kerry has that idea, her views, points of view as well, etc. So I think what we'll do is we'll rearrange off air another date for you to come on, and we can discuss this a little bit more in more detail.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a fascinating subject, but it's a very, very important subject. I mean, if we can prove that we survive physical death, and everybody survives physical death, that's a hell of a breakthrough. That's a big thing. I mean, a lot of people rely on religion or belief systems, but if you've actually got scientific proof of survival, the human personality, then that's a paradigm shift. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Okay. I can't believe the hour's nearly up. So, just quickly, obviously, the convention's coming up. Do you want to tell people how they can get tickets, how they can get involved?
Yes. It's. I know it's if you just type in UFO and Paranormal Conference, and I'm sure will come up on the website on the internet. So UFO Paranormal Conference Newport 2019 will come up, and then the website will come up, and they can just book on the website. Yeah. The website is Newport UFO and Paranormal Conference 2019.site123.me. I know it's a long domain name. I should have what you would call it, do it like Bitly, but I didn't. My friend did it. It's my first conference.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Everybody listening into
so just put UFO and Paranormal Conference Newport 2019 will just come up. The website will come up, and then they can book on the website. It's £30. £30 for the ticket all day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We've also got a psychic fair running alongside. So we've got readers, we've got people doing Tai Chi and yoga and selling crystals. We've got aura photography. It'll just be like a really lovely, friendly sort of networking event. Because we're very friendly people ourselves, it's going to be a community. Yeah. And also it'll get people talking, like we said before, it's just talking about what people have been keeping, about, people have experienced things. And it's only when you talk to them that they say, oh yes, I did have that experience. Or, I did have a UFO experience, or I have seen ghosts. And I've met people who said, they've actually hugged an alien. And I keep saying, are you sure? I said, yes. Well, unless you see an alien, it's difficult to to accept that. But,
absolutely. What we're going to do is we're going to post all the links into the chat room, and we'll get out there. This country, the UK, needs more of these conventions. So anybody listening, show the guys some support. Go down. It's a very, very interesting one. We need, because this is how this. Us talking about it, us looking at it, is how we're going to progress, how we're going to make things move forward, and that's what we want. These type of conventions. So anybody that's listening that's interested, get onto the website. We've just posted all the links into the chat room, and just basically, show some support. As I know there's
that'd be good. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
We've come up to the hour, so I would just personally like to thank Daniela and Frank for coming on. Like I said, very, very interesting. I know we got slightly sidetracked on talking about other things. What I want to do is get you guys on again, so be in touch and we'll sort that out for you.
Oh, lovely.
Personally, Sam's just had to nip off a second, so I'm gonna do the wrap up of the show. So once again, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Carl. Thank you everyone for listening.
Sam, Gary, thank you. Cheers, guys.
It's in Newport Gwent. Newport in Gwent,
yes, exactly. We'll post it. We've posted all the links on there, so anybody listening tonight who's found this show's interesting, get involved, get up there, show the guys some support. We need more of these type of conventions in the UK.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Once again, thanks, guys, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. What we're going to do is I want to thank Sam as well, my co-host, Kerry in the studio, keeping us in control. We'll be back on next Thursday with a discussion show. We're just putting the finer points of the discussion show together, which will Kerry will basically tell you about in the network roundup and going forward on Monday. So once again, thank you very much. Thanks for everybody for listening. If you want anyone want us to discuss any topics, please drop us a line on our various different social media connections. And thank you very much for listening, and good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.